Welcome everyone to this roundtable discussion on International Women's Day. I'm delighted to basically welcome to this roundtable two guests today. The first is Dr. Anjali Suraj, who is the Digital Commerce Chief Architect at Mars, and also Julia Lenihan, who's the founder and Managing Director of a boutique B2B PR and comms agency, the Digital Voice PR agency. Welcome both.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Well, thanks for joining me today. I think from both of your perspectives on International Women's Day, I think you're going to give our sort of audience at Silicon some interesting perspectives on I guess your experiences in business and of course your experiences as women in business. Which is really what we're kind of trying to, I guess, unpick today in a degree. So I'd really like to come to you first, Julia. So you're the founder of your business. So what's your background? What have you been up to for the last few years?
Oh, last 27 years I worked out. So it was, I started working in 27 years in the digital advertising industry. Actually, you know what? I started off at PC Pro magazine. Wow. So I always think out quite proudly of that background, and that was in sales. The Digital Voice, though, I founded 10 years ago this year. Yep. So I'd worked at various different publishing houses like the Mirror, Associated Newspapers, but I settled on creating a PR agency specifically for ad tech and martech companies. And largely what we've been is a voice for startups within ad tech and martech. Yep. That then we build and we grow. And a lot of our clients now are heading into IPO or huge clients, but we're still a big fan of those that are startups. In addition to that, on the side, I'm also head of PR impact at Bloom, which is a community group for women in communications. The Digital Voice is a partner and supporter of She Loves Tech. We're also a partner of the Women in Programmatic Network, and I'm founder at Digital Leading Ladies, Digital Industry Lads and Ladies, and a few other organisations. So I'm a huge supporter of men and women in tech, but lean a little bit more towards women.
Well, absolutely. I think that background sort of it sort of sheds volumes about what that is. And to you, Anjali, as I said, you're at the moment you're the architect at Mars. What's your background? What brought you to that company?
So actually, I don't come originally from technology background. My background is that of physics. So my doctorate is actually in physics. Right. I acquired that in India. And I had a career in physics to begin with. So I was teaching and researching in physics. Yep. But then we migrated to the UK in 1999. And then I changed my careers into computing because it was difficult to find jobs, satisfactory jobs in physics. So I started to build my career in technology with no training in computing or any experience in computing whatsoever. Wow. Yeah. So my first job was that of a support analyst, and I built up my career from there. And I have always focused on learning, acquiring new skills, and from there today now I am in Mars, very proud and privileged to be part of such a one of the largest CPG organizations in the world, and looking after their digital commerce, technology, strategy, and also setting up architectures, etc., to drive that strategy forward.
Fantastic. Well, you're not alone. I speak to a lot of people and in tech, and they didn't start out in tech. They started out here in academia or some related subject, and they sort of segued into technology for various reasons. Well, thanks for that, for setting the scene for that, both. What I'd like to do is get first of all, I guess your reading of the marketplace at the moment, the environment for women in tech. Maybe you first, Julia. When you look at the marketplace today, is it in good health? If you are a woman in tech, do you feel it's moved on? Has the environment for women in that space, is it better than it has been maybe for several years, or do you still feel there's work to be done?
Oh, it's a really interesting question. And it feels like if you were to put your finger on the pulse of women in tech today, it would be faltering. It would almost be, it feels like we leap forward, we go two steps forward, and then we go a step back.
Indeed.
That's done by influences outside of the industry and what's going on in the world, partly such as with COVID. But equally, I think it is there's a lot more still to be done. There has never been a better time as far as support for women in tech, a drive and a real ambition and desire for companies to get behind and develop and grow. So that's there. It's just, I think there's a lot of talk. It's now about action. And I really hope we're so close to breaking through and really feeling like we'd then be finger on the pulse. And in a year's time, David, you'd be asking the question. And I'd say it is absolutely flying. That's what I hope.
That's interesting, isn't it? That I think what you're saying is the opportunities have expanded. I think the opportunity for women to move into tech in particular, they're certainly there. But maybe the road to get there is still a little bit rocky. There's still barriers that need to be resolved. I mean, is that something that you sort of experienced, Angela, when you were sort of looking to get into tech? For you, was that an easy road, or were there still obstacles?
I think I agree with Julia that it's a rocky road still, and for me the journey has been very tough. It has been satisfactory, but it has been a lonely and a tough road to get to the place where I am today.
Indeed.
I didn't have any support. As Julia said, there was not even talk about women in tech or gender bias. There was no awareness. I myself was not aware. I blame myself that I must be doing something wrong rather than, that there are bias issues. So there was no awareness. So I blame myself, as most people do who suffer.
Yeah.
So, no, it was a tough and a lonely road. And I'm glad we are talking about these issues today openly. It's such a joy and release to be able to admit to yourself and also then share these thoughts with others so that others don't feel the same loneliness that I felt. So I think progress has been made, but is the pulse healthy? No, it's not healthy. And until the day we have to keep having these sessions and keep answering these questions about women in tech or women equality in general, the pulse is not going to be healthy.
Yes.
I think there's a reason, if I can jump in there, David, and say
there's
almost a reason why International Women's Day theme is break the bias. As Angela said, we shouldn't even that shouldn't need to be the theme. It is the theme because work still needs to be done and we need to break that bias. It's really interesting, Angela, and my heart goes out to you because now there is so much support. And for women coming into tech, there is She Loves Tech. I'm all credit for, but Girls Who Code, all of that. Bloom is a massive ambassador for women in communities to drive real change and make an impact in there. But change, the biggest worrying factor is only 5% of tech startups are female. And part of me thinks that's the conversation, that's the bit, that needs to change. And we start, come on, let's have that confidence from women to say, I'm going to found a company, I'm going to make it count, and I'm going to then bring up women, build up women's confidence and see that number grow. That would be exciting.
Confidence, that's an interesting one to hang, I think, this conversation on. I think it always comes up in the conversation. I don't know if this is what you felt, Angela, in particular, when you were moving into tech. That whole idea of imposter syndrome, that whole idea of is it for me? Can I actually make it in this industry? I think that's an interesting, word to hang that on, isn't it? Do you have the confidence? Can you make those inroads into the industry? And do you have the opportunities? But you have to have that mindset of being able to do that, mustn't you? You have to be able to move forward with it.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it is about gaining the confidence is absolutely necessary, but that answer lies within individual woman herself. She has to have that growth mindset, learner's mindset, and focus on developing your skills. And this confidence comes, first of all, from knowing that you know what you're speaking about. It's not enough because there are let's say, forces, external forces, which are poised to knock down your confidence, knowingly or unknowingly. And it takes additional courage and strength to stand up to those external forces. But that strength comes from within you, that you cannot look to others and external factors to give you that strength. That strength has to come from within you, from your learning, from your, not just the technical matter or the computing skills, but also learning about growing yourself as a person. So, for example, for me, I'm a values-driven person. So my values were my North Star. And that's what kept me going in terms of my belief that I'm not going to bend down. I prefer to suffer, but I chose not to bend down, if I'm being very clear. So there was one side which was my technical skills, which I knew I have those skills and I can stand up to anybody. So that was there. But the second aspect, which I had to develop very consciously, is to develop that courage and the belief in myself as a person. So you have to grow as a professional. You also have to grow as a person, and that answer is within you. It's not with anybody else.
Absolutely, to give you that answer. And do you feel that for you, Julia, that amazing stat of the few women start new businesses, is that what Angela's talking about? Is it a confidence thing? They have the skills, clearly. They have the amount of support is there. But is it that confidence to walk onto that scene and say, I want to be a business owner. I want to start a new business. Is it about confidence?
I think it is. I mean, I don't think. I'm a huge. If I'm being honest, I'm a huge fan of people being judged based on their value and what they deliver, what they bring, what their skills are, irrespective of any other bias associated with that. So as a person, I happen to be female. I happen to be a founder of my own company. And I hope that being a female didn't reflect on either good or bad into that decision. What I do think is sometimes you get, if we look at glass ceiling, we ourselves create sometimes a glass ceiling. I sort of put a pause slightly on my career during my 30s when I had children. I didn't stop. I just reduced the number of days per week and chose that because that was my choice. So then when I hit my late 30s, I was able to then say, right, now is the time for me to found my company. That was my, again, decision on that. I think it's a big change, and change is coming. And I think it's just that knowledge and being able to see by role models, see by the fact that actually, if the glass ceiling exists, smash it yourself by setting up yourself. Let's be a founder. Sometimes being a founder actually is easier because you're making your own decisions, your own choices, you place your own values. My own company, The Digital Voice, happens to be 80% female. That isn't by design. I actually wouldn't mind if it was 80% male. It's about the right people. I happen to have just the right people, but it's ended up being a lot of females in there, and I'm growing and building their confidence to hopefully go out there and do it themselves as well. I'm also seeing there's a couple of strong women out there like Jo Exley, who set up Bubble. She's had a tough ride actually as a CEO of a startup because it happened to be during COVID and as investments were tough and going out there and she's at my age, some middle-aged female founder, and she actually found that to be a blocker as opposed to somebody in their late 20s as a female tech startup founder. So there are going to be barriers. We have to break them. We can break them.
Do you both find it really annoying when we say founder, we say entrepreneur, and we tag on woman on the beginning of that? Does that really annoy you that we have to qualify it in some way? Oh, you're a female founder, and that suddenly has, in a lot of people's mind, a huge lot of different connotations. Just attaching that, and we really shouldn't be attaching that as a qualifier, should we? We need to move away from that. But
we love the positivity of it though, David.
That's the thing,
I think there's a huge there's also, like, we're shouting today is International Women's Day, there's a lot of us are saying I'm a female founder today and every day. Do we want to be judged based upon that? No, I want to be judged based on how I run my company and what we deliver for our clients and how I treat the team, etc. That's important, but still, if you say it in a positive way, female or male should not denote positive or negative. Found is is how you should be judged.
Well, absolutely, yeah.
I think I had said that I was not aware of gender bias or any kind of biases during my early career in technology. Right. I became biased because people were biased towards me, and that made me aware of it. Yeah. Even today, first and foremost, I'm an architect, and I am, well, if I can blow my own trumpet, I'm one of the best known architects in the industry, male or female. So I stand up for architects, IT architects, because that community in itself suffers. So I champion architect community
Love
in
it.
itself.
Love it.
Yeah.
I champion women as well. But like Julia, I think personally I would like to be known as a competent architect. That's my theme, and I don't put woman architect when I talk about architecture. But I do champion women. Full stop. Women in professional fields, not just in technology. And I have no hesitation in following those two parallel paths. One is my professional career, which is as an architect, and other is championing women, helping in any small way that I can for them to grow. And that's what I will do. And it's also about creating awareness amongst men who don't know what some of them are not even aware these issues exist or how to deal with them. And for their sake, as well as to have leave a legacy for women, I have no problem in talking about these issues. But like Julia, professionally, I am an architect and I'm good at what I do. So don't put woman architect, woman prefix behind my professional title.
Indeed.
But invite me to these sessions. I will talk all day long.
well said, Anjali, as well. Well said.
Absolutely. I think we have to talk about the C word. What's happening in the last couple of years? There's a shift, isn't there, in the way businesses are organising themselves, their workforces. I don't want to use new normal again in inverted commas, but it's clearly a shift in how people see work and what it means to them and how that's going to be organised. Now, for both of you, coming off the back of the pandemic, and we're talking sort of post-pandemic now, has things shifted for you guys? How do you feel that the last couple of years and the way businesses is now organised and run, the process, the workforce, that's been a positive, oddly enough, for women in business, and particularly in tech businesses, because of that shift and that sort of conversation about work is now different. Do you feel that for women in particular, that shift has actually been quite positive, oddly enough, that the pandemic has actually been an advantage?
I think so. I mean, from my side, we benefited. So the Digital Voice is 100% virtual and remote and always has been for 10 years. What it enabled me to do, though, is I had time to take stock. I also needed to spend more time on my virtual communities. And I mentioned the ones I'm involved in, like Bloom, She Loves Tech, the Women in Programmatic Network, Digital Leading Ladies. So those, you really felt you drew on your virtual communities. The second part was I was able to go and expand the team internationally. So I have a brilliant lady, Mary, who lives in Pakistan, who's just the best SEO expert I've ever had. I've got a social media specialist, Nicole, in Norway. I've got a brilliant event specialist in Kalia in Barbados. We've got teams all over the UK. The team is all over the UK as well. So it allowed us to go, doesn't matter where you are, we can make this work. I also felt I know we're a PR agency, but we work with ad tech and martech companies. So we saw it's just exploded. It's exploded, the growth area, and that has changed. And I think we all had more time. For me, I stopped the commute and the say travel and the traveling to certain events, and focused more on getting the job done. And the biggest change was we're able to be flexible with our hours. So we choose as a team. I choose to start work at 7 a.m. I choose to finish at 4 p.m. when my children walk in the door. And our team chooses to work. We always have Friday afternoons off so that we can recharge, because we do work early days, and we just really power through all this energy. And to give the team a chance to recharge, we stop at Friday at 1 o'clock. And that's been a big change of having the confidence to say, this is how I run my company. We'll always be virtual, we'll always be remote. The hours we keep are much more flexible. The software we rely on has it changed. As somebody, we now use much more tech to enable our company to run. And we definitely have seen a positive. And I think for mums as well, they've juggled an awful lot. And dads, mums and dads during the pandemic, and everybody juggled their own, there was a lot of emotional changes and all of that. So there feels like very positive steps coming out of it for everybody, because it does get a little bit easier now that we're coming out of the other side.
I think well done to Julia for running her business and continuing to run her business in a remote fashion, and it's very productive, I agree. But what I'm seeing in offices, which bigger companies, etc., is there is a new bias there is a risk of new bias emerging, the remote working versus office-based working. So I think we have to wait and see what happens now that we are coming out of the pandemic, because there is a push towards going back to the old ways of working and being in the office. And then again, if you're in the office, if you're together as a team, you have much bigger opportunity to network, to form relationships, and those which are working from home don't have that opportunity, and that may start to create a divide. And this has nothing to do with gender. I think this is going to impact everybody who is working remotely, either by choice or because that's the only option on the table, like Julia, some of the employees. So I think that balance is what we have to watch out for, that office workers or office-based workers versus remote workers.
I guess there's that phrase of the Great Resignation. People are, I guess, re-evaluating what work means for them, and more importantly, what their work-life balance should be, and what they would like it to be. Do you think that's quite a different conversation for women who want to either change careers, start a business, maybe something part-time? The whole idea of the side hustle seems to be re-emerging again. Do you think it's a very different perspective if I was thinking of that than if you were thinking of that, simply because of our genders? Do you have very different conversations about that because you're coming from it from a very different perspective?
That's a really interesting question of, do I see it differently to you, and does Anjali, and how does David and all of us see it? From my side, I think the Great Resignation has enabled companies to have to step up. And you no longer just judge a company based on the salary and the role. It's so much more. One of our clients, Impact.com, the global HR director, Bharat Signani, is so good at looking at, how are we going to get the talent to us? How are we going to do that? What are we offering beyond, above and beyond? They've gone over and above on parental policies and things like that. So in that way, if you're a parent, you would look at certain aspects. What I love is the training that, say, for example, you want to retrain, especially in tech. You've got to keep training and learning, and you can't stand still. That used to have to be something you do in your own time. And I think the ability now for people are going, hang on a second, I want to take this job, but I also want to have a day a week to learn, to develop, or within the confines. It's got to work for the company. It's got to work for the business. We have to make, as a business owner, I always say, I'll make this work, but you've got to make it work within the time. But I think that's made a big shift. And I do think people, male or female, should be very confident. If they're working hard, they're delivering, that they have a strong stance, and employers need to work hard to keep them and to make them happy. And a happy workforce is then able to work well as well. It works both ways. It
I think so.
It should work positively.
Absolutely. I mean,
I think I agree with Julia that employers have to do much more, and they are thinking harder about it, not to take it for granted. Their employees at all levels, everywhere. I think personally, how the pandemic has impacted me is that it has made me realize the importance of my personal life, my family. So before the pandemic, I would not hesitate to travel or go and stay in another country for a period of time for the sake of career growth. But now if anybody asks me that question, my priority will be, no, I want to be close to home. I want to stay here. My family is more important to me than my ambition. And I'll make that choice without any hesitation. I don't have young children anymore, so I don't have any practical limitations, but it's the choice that my family is more important to me than my work, or equally important. And I'll find an opportunity where I am, but I won't sacrifice my family or my personal life for the sake of a career. That's a choice I'm making.
Well,
do you think that? Can I just ask though, if sorry, David, I was just going to ask that, Anjali. I mean, the good thing is, I always say, we don't need to travel. You know, the whole point of what happened in the pandemic is, I mean, I've got currently 3 screens running. We host experiences on a virtual platform. We don't, that we can have, that has live networking on 3D floors. We've got Slack running throughout the day, or Teams, there's many others available. But there is that. Do I need to step on a plane to go and present or speak or have a meeting? We host for some of our clients their whole global revenue all hands meeting for hundreds and hundreds of people globally that they would have flown the team round. No, not only is that not sustainable and it's not great for carbon footprint. So I also agree with Anjali. It's not just about your own personal life. You can actually push back and say technology exists to enable us to do a lot of what we previously thought impossible through the screen. I'm not saying to say no to live in person, but I think we can definitely say embrace more.
The other big question...
But yes, Julia, you are fortunate. Sorry, if I can just address. Julia, you're fortunate to run your own business, and I commend you on giving that freedom to companies are adopting that mindset. Some of them are going back to the old ways of working and having that, I need my people around me. I've heard some people say, I need my people around me. My team needs to be with me. So that mindset is not completely gone. And so that's why the post-pandemic situation, we need to see how long the new normal stays or whether we go back to the old ways of working.
I think it'll be it's going to be the leaders. If the leaders are enlightened and they can see the value of making those changes, those are the businesses that are going to thrive, I feel. If you're stuck as a legacy business and we're just going to go back to the old ways, you're not going to make it, I don't think, in the post-pandemic world. Things have to change. Not radically, but most of the time it's a mindset change. It's look at what you used to do. And this is the new world. This is the brave new world, guys. And you're going to have to do something. You have to change in some respect, and that can really be a focus on your people. Tools are tools, and new tools have come along, and we've adopted those. Ultimately, it's your people. Who are they? Where are they? How can you support them? And more importantly, how's their mindset shifted, and how can you support that? And if you have obviously women and men in your workforce, are their priorities different? And if they are, how do you support those as an integrated workforce? Those are interesting questions. I think that's a conversation we could have for hours about how businesses can restructure themselves, and we don't have the time.
Absolutely.
What I really wanted to get your input as well for you both was. When you're speaking to young women in particular, people are starting out, they're trying to figure out, what do I want to do? I kind of want to get into tech. That's something that attracts me. What are the conversations that you're having with young women in particular who are starting out either new businesses or they want to be employed or whatever it is? Have those conversations been very positive for maybe recently because of the pandemic, or because you feel that young women have more confidence, they feel they can make inroads into this industry? Maybe that wasn't possible 10 years ago. So for you people, for you both, young women in particular, is it a different space for them?
Okay, so I come from, again, technical area, and technology industry is now widening up, opening up a lot of opportunities. So it is not just IT, and it's not narrow focus. Its focus is not as narrow as it used to be. So there are a lot more opportunities, which is good. Yeah. And there are also opportunities to get jobs for young women. There is some of the companies have women quotas. There is a voluntary sector. So there's so not only the industry is widening up, the opportunities are also opening up. So that's the good part of it. And organizations are making conscious effort to recruit women. So that is all good. I think where I see challenges is this is all good up to junior or middle level. And I'm talking about large corporations because that's where my experience is. But when you reach a middle level, you start to see that the stakes are higher and the biases are still there. So men are happy to open their doors and support women to get to the junior to middle level, but from middle to senior level, like board level, etc., that's a different game. And there I'm not seeing any shift at all. Yeah. And if women are not visible in senior positions, then the women who are ambitious, the young women who are ambitious, why would they sustain in that tech career? They see, end of the day, it's passion is one thing that drives you, but success also drives you. And if you don't have successful role models in front of you, then you will naturally take a different path to your career success as compared to progressing in tech.
Indeed.
And I think if I can jump in on, and I think you're right, Anjali. I mean, I think the only thing that's different is that, say, for example, you're a female. If you're not seeing women in senior positions, as we mentioned, unfortunately, that is still, I completely agree, it's still limited. Yeah. The good thing is next to you, right next to you, are your colleagues and organisations and groups like She Loves Tech that's doing that. It just recently did a campaign on investing in tech startups for women and all of this. And there's a lot of drive, and we're seeing it in so many different ways coming through. And the Women in Programmatic Network, the team there are incredible what they're pushing. And that's obviously specifically in programmatic advertising and tech in that area. Yep. Interesting enough, I've got a son and a daughter. And my daughter's 15, and she said the other day she wants to potentially work in network security. And I was like, go on, that's incredible. I don't think she quite knows what network security is, but she's definitely she's a bit more tech savvy than my son, who's 16 and wants to be a graphic designer. So but I think that generation coming through are being taught very much to break the bias. So there is no bias. You're being taught the same way. I hope I'm seeing it. I've seen it from having had a boy and a girl going through now. I think it's a very different landscape. So I hope that when they let's say leave university or start their first path on career path, they're going to have a different experience. I've recently just done a recruitment drive. I was looking for 2 new people to join my company. I ended up with 4, but I went after graduates. Now, okay, I'm a PR agency and not tech, but there was such a pool of talent out there, and I was after those that had done a degree in the subject I wanted, and I had such a strong mix of men and women coming for those interviews, and I had a huge talent pool to choose from. So I would say and definitely implore companies to really go out there, look at the talent pool, go in with eyes open and tap in and lean on organisations that are there and communities that are there and groups that will help you. See who's following those groups, who's part of it, who's part of that community, and you'll see a huge talent pool.
I think it's also about I guess who is speaking to young women as well. What kind of support do they have very early on? Their teachers, their careers advisors, those kinds of people that maybe wouldn't have those conversations a few years ago are certainly having those conversations now, because there's a feel that there's a shift in the market. You can have these opportunities. If you do want to get into network security, go for it. and here's how to do it. Whereas those conversations maybe wouldn't have even taken place. What is my roadmap to get from here to that job? That wouldn't have been communicated a few years ago, which is a very sad state of affairs. But it does seem that those conversations are now they're happening every day, at schools and in higher education, and that's a really gratifying shift, I think, in how those kinds of opportunities are being communicated. Because after all, it's about opportunity, isn't it? It's about, I want to do this, but can I? And if I want, and if I can do that, what's the route? And those routes seem to be coming into focus now, which is very gratifying. Last question for you both, I think, before we close. I'd like to sort of say, well, if we had this conversation in a year's time, and we probably will, let's reconvene, which would be quite interesting. That's quite interesting to do on next year's International Women's Day. What will be your hopes for say the next 12 months? Is there something that you feel, if we can break that ceiling, if we can move the conversation forward, what would be your hopes for the next sort of year, for particularly in the tech industry?
If I jump in, I'm going to say one, and I hope next year the theme is broke the bias rather than break the bias. And I hope the next year shows not examples of what we're doing, but what we've done and real evidence. Let's show it that we've made inroads, that we're making change. There is nothing better than seeing all across LinkedIn positive stories of empowerment, and I would cite this as being for anybody. I really don't want anybody to feel that they can't move forward and be successful. But I think I hope we see real examples. Shout loud, shout proud. Let's move the dial slightly. I'd love to be here, David, with you and Anjali going, it's now 15% of female tech startups are female. Great. Or whatever that number is, even higher would be great. I'd just like to see there being that change. Evidence of change would be huge.
I think I agree with...
Fantastic. And for you?
I agree with Julie. I would like to see that change happen. And as I said, I would like to see that change happen at the senior level. I would like to see more senior women in senior positions so they can act as role model for the generation that is following them. And specifically for my area, I think I would like to see that progress in technical parts of the technology industry, because that's an area that is lacking in itself. So for both men and women.
Well, I think that's a massively positive note to end on. I think for all of us, that I think the opportunities are certainly. There's certainly opportunities there, and I think businesses are shifting their mindset. I think the roads to these kind of careers are certainly more in focus than they have been for several years, which is a gratifying thing. And I think the role models are there as well. I think we're seeing more of that because role models are important. I feel in this because everyone likes to aspire to someone, and I want to be like that person, and that's who I would like to be like. It kind of gives you something to aim at, and so if they can do that, maybe I can as well. Yep. And that level of confidence, I feel, is much higher than it's probably ever has been for women in tech in particular. Which is a great thing to see. As I said, I think that's a great point to sort of close our conversation. So really, I'd like to thank Julia and to thank Anjali for joining me today on International Women's Day. I hope the conversation has been I think interesting, and I think it's only inspiring. I think I think both of you are clearly role models in your own right, in your own fields. And kind of shows everyone, I think that's sort of joined us today, that if you want to do something in the tech field, really there are barriers. Absolutely, there are still some obstacles, but you can certainly get across those obstacles to achieve whatever you want to achieve. So again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us.
Thank you.
So it's goodbye from me, David Howell, and also from Julia.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And also from Anjali for taking the time today. And as I say, well, we may be able to reconvene next year, and we can maybe have a conversation about it's absolutely a date, and we can see what's changed over the last 12 months as we move into the post-pandemic, and what that actually means for women, for careers, and particularly in the tech space. It's good. So I think it's going to be an interesting 12 months.
Thank you.
Thank you.